Thank you. Let's have our seats. Okay, we want to proceed now. I'm sure many of us are looking for the hard copy program. We are being mindful of the environment, so we are reducing the printing. If you have your notebook, you will see inside the notebook there's that QR code. And in case you don't have a notebook, the ICT people have flashed it on the screen there. So if you don't have the program, this is where it is. Okay. So we want to get started with the program for today. It's a great occasion for us. And we are using introduction. Again, we can call on the nice, but so in order for us to get going, Ms. Paul, things straight. One, I don't know, do we have anybody from Thailand over here? No. Okay. But I'm told in Thailand, the men go to hunt rabbits. The ladies go to pick flowers. So in case you want to go hunting for the men, you go out, and on the right-hand side, just before the lifts, there's a hunting ground over there. For the ladies, if you want to go pick flowers, you follow the same route, but just beware of the signs as well. Are we communicating? Okay? I'm just saying that the washrooms are that direction, in case you feel pressed. Okay? So if you want to pick flowers, you want to hunt rabbits, that's the direction. To get us moving with the program, I will want to invite the director of Tegemeo, Professor Obare, to set us going. He will usher us into the main program and also welcome us officially. If you noticed, I did not welcome you because that is not in my place. So let me welcome Professor Bare, the Director of Tegemeo Institute, to do exactly that and then proceed with the next session. Welcome. Please, let's give a hand as he comes in here.
Thank you very much, Paul, for the good and nice words about hunting rabbits and picking flowers. Mr. Visi, Egerton University, Professor Isaac Kebuage, Andrew Cohen, the Head of Mission, United States Agency for International Development, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm delighted to welcome you and those who are online to this important stakeholder meeting, STAR conference on shaping sustainable futures, the influence of policies, programs, and economic factors in Kenya's agriculture and well-being. Let me begin by acknowledging our partners in this endeavor, namely Michigan State University, Tegemeo Institute of Egerton University, and Purdue University, with whom we have worked closely over the past 3 years, and the Saracare project, which of course you are going to hear a little bit more about. I also extend my sincere appreciation to the USAID and USDA, that is United States Department of Agriculture, for their generous support of this initiative. So, ladies and gentlemen, the timing of this conference is particularly significant. As we were here over the 2 days, we'll share and discuss crucial findings from research that touch on the very foundation of Kenya's agriculture sector and economic well-being. The conference agenda reflects the complexity of challenges facing Kenya's agricultural sector. And what makes it unique is the diversity of perspectives in this room. When I talk of diversity of perspectives in this room, then I'm also referring to the participants, those who are in this room and also those who are following us online. As practitioners and policymakers, you bring invaluable insights that will help bridge the gap between research, evidence, and practical implementation. So again, over the next 2 days, or 1 3/4 days, we'll hear from experts, join panel discussions, and collaborate to find actionable solutions. My plea is for you to participate actively, share your experiences, and help shape the recommendations that will emerge from this conference. Thank you, and I wish you all productive and engaging discussion. So that is part of my introduction and welcoming remark. Having done that, now I take over as a facilitator in the next section, whereby I'm honored to welcome Andrew Cohen, the head of the USAID mission in Kenya, to give his remarks. Andrew.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me. I hope my bosses aren't in the room because I am actually not the mission director for Kenya and East Africa, but we can pretend I am today, if that's okay with everybody else. My name is Andrew McCown. I'm the Feed the Future coordinator for Kenya and East Africa, and our division chief for our Center of Resilience and Food Security. So we program all of our food security, agriculture, and nutrition-sensitive ag programming for Kenya and the region. And it's my distinct pleasure to be here. I've not met everybody in this room. I've been in country for about 1 year now, so I haven't had the pleasure to meet everybody, although I have met a lot of you, I'm realizing now. Let me maybe just start by saying what a distinct pleasure it is for myself and also for us at USAID and many of my colleagues here in this table in the middle to have been supporting and investing in the Support for Applied Research Analysis program here in Kenya and the region. You've alluded, Doctor, to the fact that this is an opportune time to be talking about a lot of these issues. We believe that research and applied analytics and research really is fundamental to the work that we do in development. And I certainly can speak for USAID, but wearing my other hat as the chair for the Ag and Rural Development Partners Group, I can speak for that as well, and just say how valuable this kind of research and these kinds of convenings, but more than the convenings, the content that we're actually going to be talking about is for us and how we prioritize our investments. We do not have the time. Most development partners do not have the time to sit and think and do and analyze and study and research or even talk about a lot of these topics in the depth that we're going to talk about them in the next couple of days. So I want to thank you all for your time and just reiterate how critical having this information out there, having this good thinking in place is for us as we prioritize our investments and chart a course forward in our partnership with the government of Kenya, governments in the region, and with the private sector and civil society. The time is now. There's never a bad time to talk about a lot of these topics that we're going to be discussing over the next couple of days, but as you all are probably acutely aware, fertilizer and inputs are very much sort of in the press and on the mind here in Kenya and in the region right now. Soil health, coming out of the Soil Health Summit last May, I believe it was, April-May timeframe. This is all hyper relevant, and there's a lot of investment and energy around that topic right now as we try to figure out what is best for Kenya, as the government tries to prioritize what is best for Kenya and its people, and as we try to support those endeavors. Nutrition, obviously, that's an issue that never goes away, and I know that on day 2 we're going to dig into that. And employment for youth. I mean, we all lived through the fairly dramatic and I think eye-opening moments over the June and July timeframe here in Kenya, where the youth stood up and said, you know, we need more and we're demanding more. So talking about employment opportunities for youth, what that means for food security and what that means in the agricultural space, we cannot emphasize enough how critically important that is right now to be discussing. And not just discussing that topic and others, but coming out of this meeting, hopefully driving a lot of this good thinking to action. So my plea to all of us in this room as I wrap up these brief welcome remarks and good morning is that, you know, we listen to this really good thinking. It is action oriented. It is good analysis, data, research, opinions. Everything is going to be out here in the next couple of days. But we figure out how to take that and actually embed it into our programming, into our investments in a meaningful way, so that what we do here doesn't just stay here in the Sarova, and rather that it actually influences policy and influences the way that we spend our precious development assistance moving forward. So thank you. I want to thank my colleagues at Michigan State University, at Purdue, many who have traveled a long distance to be here with us, and of course, Egerton and Tegameo partners, and others who are in the room from development partners and other institutions for your time and your commitment to this issue, and to the broader topic of research in the agricultural and food security space. So without further ado, let's dig in. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to stay for as long as I can today, and then when I do have to leave, that's unfortunate, but I will be back tomorrow to sort of re-engage and dig in further. So I hope we can talk on the margins and get a coffee and get to know each other better. But yeah, good luck with the proceedings, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And let's say in my introduction, that was a slip of the tongue, and now that we've corrected it, I think your bosses will be able to appreciate that and understand. Right. Once again, let's give a round of applause to Andrew's speech. All right, and now it is my pleasure to welcome our chief guest, the Vice Chancellor, Egerton University, Professor Isaac Kibuage, will give his remarks and officially open this conference. Prof.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are all very important persons. Let us then not split into various protocols, but I welcome you to this conference hosted by the Tegameo Institute of Egerton University. The theme of the conference is Shaping Sustainable Futures, the influence of policies, programs, and economic factors in Kenya's agriculture and well-being. I think this is a very timely topic, really, to capture our imagination and see what we can discuss about and put to the government so that it addresses our agriculture. Globally, agriculture is now being faced by increasing challenges of economic, environmental, and social shocks. The recent high prices of fertilizer, fuel, and food, intensifying effects of climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects and the resilience must take center stage in the development and implementation of policies and programs that seek to make positive impact on the livelihood of farmers. The conference over the next 2 days will be discussing evidence from research in Kenya's agricultural sector and the rural livelihoods over the past 4 years, and in particular focus on identifying key drivers to agricultural growth, fertilizer and soil health, value chain development, enhancing human nutrition, youth employment, and building the resilience of rural households. These focus areas of the conference are germane as entry points for efforts to enhance sustainability in agriculture and livelihoods. I am particularly happy to note that the conference brings together key actors in Kenya's agricultural sector. These are farmers who are really the people where we say the rubber meets the road, the national and the county governments for development of policies, private sector, development partners and agencies, civil society organizations, research organizations, and others that share insights and discuss best practices for securing sustainability in Kenya's agricultural sector and livelihood. I believe the outcome of discussions will contribute to the development of policies and development programs towards sustainable agricultural growth. Most of the research evidence that will be presented and discussed today and tomorrow has been generated through long-term collaboration such as the National Food Security and Nutrition Policy and the National Agricultural Marketing Strategy, among others. Most recently, the Institute contributed to the development of the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan, which African heads of state and the governments adopted at the Africa Fertilizer and Health Summit that was held in May this year here in Nairobi. Specifically, Tegemeo researchers were among the team that developed the concept note for the summit, conducted studies, and developed research papers that informed the action plan. And then they went on to develop the action plan itself. The Institute and other partners have continued to support the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development to develop the seeds and plant varieties, also known as vegetatively propagating seeds regulations of 2024, which are currently in the Office of the Attorney General for legal drafting. As a leading center for agricultural policy analysis in Kenya, the Tegemeo Institute looks forward to working with the government and Kenya's development partners to continue generating and providing research evidence and viable policy options for sustainable agricultural transformation and growth. And this will obviously then end up creating resilient rural livelihoods. The Institute will therefore continue to promote policy dialogue and advocacy for dissemination of research findings through various platforms, including policy conferences such as this one. I wish to thank the USAID through Andrew Cohen, who wasn't very happy to be promoted, but that is, I think, wishing you well for the future. So I say Andrew Cohen of the Feed the Future Coordinator Kenya and East African Director, Center of Excellence. So I don't know whether I'm continuing that wish or now it is back to, it has been reset. Yes. For your continued support in Kenya's agricultural sector and in supporting the consortium of the Tegemeo Institute, Michigan State University, Purdue University, as they generated the evidence that will be presented in this conference and in hosting the event. USAID has supported the development of homegrown analytics capacity for a long time. This support has continued to strengthen the policy reform debate in the country. Empirical policy research has also assisted in shaping and guiding agricultural policy formulation in the country. We urge you to continue supporting us in this important area of our economy, including strengthening data systems in the agricultural sector. I wish to thank our collaborators from Michigan State University and Purdue University and scholars from MSU who have worked with the Tegemeo since 1997 and have continued to support capacity building of policy analysis in this country. I particularly thank Professor Meridia Mewish of MSU for her leadership of the consortium. Allow me to also acknowledge the bilateral partners who have supported Tegemeo in one way or another. Egerton University will be approaching you for continued support as we seek to strengthen the Institute's analytical capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, I just reach a point where I say, okay, that's a written speech, so I'm not guilty of anything that has been there. I just want to tell you where you feel I'm not very conversant with agriculture. It is true. My training is in pharmacy, and I tell people like this that the most critical medicine for humans is food. If you don't have food, any treatment we give you will not be effective. If you don't have food, you will die of hunger despite any medicine available to you. And when you are hungry, you are an angry what? An angry person. And it concerns me that we are talking about soil fertility and various policies. And I wonder whether we have ever had a policy on the issues of land tenure and use. Because in Kenya, I have grown up seeing, I come from a county which has very good, is it climate or weather? And we have continued to split pieces of land until now. Until now there is no land for food. I don't know how many of you can guess which county that is. I have seen in the neighborhood of Nairobi where we are turning arable land into concrete settlement areas. And yet we are talking about soil fertility. You can only talk about soil fertility when you have the land. If you have less than a quarter an acre to feed a family of 5 for a year, it's not possible. So as we make any other resolutions, it's nice to have fertilizer, to have good soil health, but more important, to have the soil. And to have the soil that can support agriculture. You know, in Kenya, most of the country is what? Arid and semi-arid. So let us not be talking, ignoring. I would like to thank those who are supporting this, but Kenya is not USA. Kenya is not in other countries where they are very clear and focused on land use. Here, because of our land tenure, you have the argument that the land is mine, isn't it? Therefore, I can do whatever I want with it, so you sell it, you partition it, and we have really degraded our arable land. Last week, I was addressing a group of lawyers and environmentalists on the issue of degradation and climate change. And you might also be telling us to talk about climate smart agriculture. But it again comes down to what? Availability of land. So as you deliberate what is going to be presented, I want you to contextualize it on the issue of available arable land so that we can be able to really make sense in the development and resilience of agriculture in homes. So with those not very nice remarks, ladies and gentlemen, but very critical, and let us be very honest with each other. You don't have to feel nice. We need to be factual. The analytics are not bad. They are only ignoring what? A critical contributor to food security, availability of arable land. With those many remarks now, then it is my honor and pleasure to declare this conference officially open. Thank you very much.
An hungry man can be very angry. You can talk about food security when you don't have the land to till the food itself. You can try to treat a patient, somebody who is sick, but if that person doesn't have food, then whatever you'll be doing obviously will be, the efforts will be just unsuccessful. So those are the key messages that I got, and therefore that we need to start rethinking the perspective upon which then we address issues of agriculture in general, food security and livelihood, and at the center of this, we should all start to think about the land tenure system, particularly as it pertains to Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a round of applause to the VC's address. Thank you once again for the opportunity that Paul gave to me to facilitate this short session. It is now my pleasure to hand over the facilitation to our facilitator, substantial facilitator, Paul.
Okay, thank you for those opening remarks. Really stimulating and really getting us there. I like the fact, VC, that however much medicine you have, if there's no food, you will not get the results. I think that's a very critical. I didn't see the convergence between pharmacy and agriculture now. It is very clear. Food, then medicine. Actually, sometimes they say the food is also the medicine. Thank you very much. Now, we want to get into the substantive discussions as we proceed now. So I would wish to now welcome Meridia, to get us into the process itself by giving us an overview of what we have to discuss today. Welcome, please.
Is it on? Is it on? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Over the past 3 years, a partnership between Michigan State University, the Tegemeo Institute of Agriculture and Policy and Development at Egerton University and Purdue University have been working on an important initiative known as Support for Applied Research and Analysis in the Kenya and East Africa region, or in short, SARAKEA. This initiative has been generously funded by USAID Kenya and the East Africa Regional Office through a grant from US Department of Agriculture's Foreign Agriculture Service to Michigan State University. As a professor in the Department of Agricultural, Food and Resource Economics at Michigan State, I have been privileged to serve as the principal investigator for this project. And it is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this two-day conference. In these short remarks this morning, I'll provide an overview of this USAID project, discuss the objectives of our conference, and share the program we have planned. As Mr. Andrew McCowan, the Feed the Future coordinator from USAID, has emphasized, the US government's programs in Kenya aim to support smallholder farmers and agribusinesses in tackling poverty, hunger, malnutrition, and food insecurity. These programs closely partner with local stakeholders in both the public and private sectors to achieve these goals and are aligned with the public policy objectives of the local and national governments. To be effective, these activities must adapt to environmental, political, and market changes. Timely analytics and insights are crucial to inform decision-making at every level: program, community, private sector, and government. The SARAKEA project was designed precisely to meet these analytical needs. The project goal was, or has been, to deliver applied research and analytical support for US government programs in Kenya and East Africa, and its objectives were threefold. First, to strengthen knowledge management, adaptive learning, and data-driven decision-making to guide current and future investments. Second, to improve development outcomes by fostering economic growth, food security, nutrition, and resilience to shocks. And third, to build research and institutional capacity among local organizations and researchers, empowering them to conduct impactful research and influence policies while advancing toward greater self-reliance. Over the past 3 years, our research has focused on 3 key areas. These are agriculture-led growth, resilience, and nutrition-sensitive agriculture. These activities have spanned 2 broad areas under research and analysis and knowledge management. Under research and analysis, we have examined topics such as agriculture land ownership and farm size, farm productivity trends, agricultural input policies, climate change impacts, youth employment, political economy of agri-food value chains, role of rising commercial farms, evaluation of the fertilizer input subsidy program, crop diversification, and food environment, its impact on diet quality, and the cost of nutritious foods. We have utilized both primary and secondary data and used quantitative as well as qualitative methods to generate analytical outputs on these topics. And these outputs have been shared with USAID and other stakeholders to support development programming. In knowledge management, we have focused on identifying, packaging, and disseminating these outputs to reach targeted audiences. This conference is part of that effort, fitting squarely within the knowledge sharing component of Sarakia. Reflecting USAID's commitment to localization, we have organized this national conference to engage a diverse array of stakeholders and policymakers in Kenya to share and discuss our research findings. The conference has two main objectives. First, to present our research findings and gather feedback. And second, to facilitate in Kenya's, and to facilitate dialogue among stakeholders in Kenya's agriculture sector, which include all of you who are present here, policymakers, practitioners, private sector participants, researchers, and farmers, to foster and exchange ideas and insights. More than 100 people, I've been told, have registered for this conference, and they include participants from government, their government officials, civil society organizations, donors, private sector representatives, research organizations, and some of you are also farmers. Over the next 2 days, we have planned 4 sessions each day, which will feature presentations, panel discussions, and audience participation. Today we'll focus on agricultural growth trends, fertilizer and soil health, agricultural value chain, and various lessons and insights from development programs. Tomorrow we will hear from a keynote speaker on strengthening resilience in Kenya's food systems. And this will be followed by a session on nutritional policy, food environment, and cost of food choices in Kenya, and a session on enhancing employment opportunities for youth. And the final session after lunch will focus on building resilience on rural households. To keep the focus of those who ultimately benefit from our research, we have also included storytelling sessions from farmers in key value chains like maize, fish, livestock, and coffee, each vital for Kenya's economic and nutritional landscape. We hope these 2 days filled with storytelling, presentations, and rich discussions will provide insights into the challenges Kenya and its neighbors face as they work towards sustainable futures. Let us use this time to deepen our understanding of how policies, programs, and economic factors can shape Kenya's agriculture and well-being, which is sort of the overall theme of our conference. I encourage you to use the coffee breaks and lunch times to connect with fellow participants, sharing thoughts, ideas, and perspectives to deepen our understanding of these important development issues. Let's also take this opportunity to build bridges of friendships across the organizations and institutions that are represented here at this conference. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the learning and discussion that awaits us for the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you for setting the pace for us for the session that we are getting into. Basically, the key objectives like we have had, presenting the research findings, facilitating dialogue, and to foster exchange. of ideas. I think those are the key things that I've picked from that opening remark as well, and overview. Now, before we get to the process that we want to get, in many cases, scientists, researchers, as it were, are always, taken to task. That you're doing research, you're conducting research, that is very good, but for who? And unfortunately for Egerton, being an academic institution, we are always accused. It's for publications, it's for what, but I think we want to digress from that. Research, especially in agriculture, is intended to serve a group of people. And just for us to be sure that we are serving those interests, we have a few people in the room who have the land and who are practicing. Others have the water and they are practicing. Of course, you might be asking, what do you practice, which agriculture do you practice in water? You will get to hear that one, okay? So at this point in time, please allow me, before we get into the real sessions, to invite some two very important people just to talk to us, so that we know we are on the right track. And for that purpose, I would wish to invite Madam Susan Mwihaki, who is a practicing maize farmer. So please, let's hear what she has to tell us. After she finishes, we'll also have another practicing fish farmer, so that as we go around these things, we have something to check ourselves on. This is the storytelling bit. So if you're waiting for that story from grandma, it is not that type of story. It is this story from the farmer. Madam Mwihaki, please, let's put our hands together for
All right. All protocols observed. Good morning. I'm so much used to wearing gumboots, so the heels I'm going to have to practice more. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. My name's Susan Mwihaki Mwaura from Trans Nzoia County. As you know, Trans Nzoia County is the main food basket of Kenya. I am an agripreneur. I don't like calling myself a farmer as much, because farmers are most associated 60 years and above, I'm a youth farmer, a medium-scale farmer, a third-generation farmer for that matter. Our mission as agripreneurs, as Professor said, is to make people not angry. And as you know, maize, being ugali, is our staple food. But now, as a maize farmer, there are some things that are making me not to make you guys angry. First, we'll talk about the cost of production. The cost of production lately has been so high. I'm a maize farmer for about 5 years. I do not have much experience, but I still can qualify to talk about my experience. We appreciate Egerton University. I remember my CEC called me some few years back to allow Egerton University researchers to come and take soil sampling. And with that, we've seen the government actually appreciating us and making our inputs by providing the blended fertilizers compared to the DAP, meaning it is addressing the soil acidity in the soil. But now, we appreciate the subsidy fertilizer being provided, but as you can see from the news that you usually see all the time, it's chaotic. Because why? The fertilizer come at the same time with our production. Remember, us as farmers, we 100% depend on rain for farming. And being climate change is real, So that means it has affected the time of which we plant and everything. And what does that mean? It means the production goes low. But remember, the X factor of production is still the same. But as a farmer, what do you need to do? You have to continue farming because, I don't think there's nothing else we're going to do with our weather in Trans Nzoia County. So the queues of NCPB is hectic. Not all of us will be able to afford because the prices of the subsidy and the prices of the local market in our aggrovates, it's almost double the price. But sometimes it's in atubidi, or rather we are forced to going into the local aggrovates into buying the expensive fertilizer. So the recycle of money, literally, it's just going round and round into the farms. And yeah, for those who have been in Kitale, you can see our economic growth is not really pleasing as compared to the cities. My maize farming, I am still planting the seed that was there years and years ago. And I think it's something that the researchers should address about the seeds. Because now we need to plant seeds that are more sustainable into this future, free from pests. The other day we had fall armyworm. That was something new into this country, and we had to tackle, and we are still tackling because it hasn't gone away. As Professor said, the time is now. We cannot keep on saying we cannot keep on not talking about it. And I appreciate the fact that our theme for this conference is shaping sustainable futures, and the futures is us. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm so glad to be here.
I hope researchers are taking notes, policymakers are taking notes, cost of inputs is already there, and more critical, the timing. When does the fertilizer arrive? Does it arrive before we plant, or does it arrive after the rains? I think that is the concern. And many other things fitting into the sustainable future. Let me now call upon Mercy Chepkurui, who is a fish farmer. I know when you hear Chepkurui, you start thinking of other things. Yes, it is not marathon today. It is about fish farming. Welcome, Mercy.
Thank you. Yeah, all the protocols observed. Good morning. Yeah, my name is Mercy Chepkurui, and it's not all about marathon today. We are talking about fish. Yeah, Mercy is also a proud alumni of Egerton University. I trained as an aquatic scientist, class of 2017, so I feel at home. I'm here representing a Rio Fish Farm, and I'm gonna take you through our story of strengthening fish value chain for food security and economic empowerment. Rio Fish is a private company. It's a social enterprise born in 2018, and we are located in both Migori and Homa Bay County. Next slide. Sorry. Rio Fish is also founded on the principles of policies of environment and social responsibility, and we harness cut-edge technologies to transform aquaculture value chain. So Rio Fish basically work with the community. And the problems in the industry include inadequate fish supply, because currently we have high demand of fish compared to the supply. And we also have a challenge with the cold storage facility. We all understand that fish quality is compromised immediately you have fish out of the water, and when you don't have proper infrastructures to support the quality, it becomes compromised in a short period of time. So we have the problem of compromised food safety. And we also lack quality inputs because as a cage farmer, the cost of buying a cage and also nets, it's very expensive. And also we have feeds. Currently the cost of feeds comprise 70 to 80% of the total production cost. So we have a challenge of a high cost of feeds and also certified fingerlings. Though currently we are farming Nile tilapia, F8 generation, and we appreciate our research sectors for giving us support in finding our certified seeds in the industry. We also have a challenge of environmental concerns because we are running this enterprise in a delicate aquatic ecosystem whereby if we are not careful, we will mess up with the next generation. So sustainability of aquatic ecosystem is the key because we don't want to be in the industry today and tomorrow, but we also care for our future. So our operating model, we farm in fish cages, which is a climate smart fish production excellent, whereby we boost production through collaborations with the women-led cooperatives. Rio Fish is a women empowerment center whereby we support women along the lake regions. And why women is because women have a lot of challenges, and in fish value chain, it's male-dominated. So us as women, we try to jungle between multiple problems in balancing between production roles and also reproduction roles. Then my passion for supporting women is not only to uplift, but also it's from my own personal experience in the industry, where at some point I found myself practicing in fear because I found myself in an environment whereby they want to downgrade my out of victimhood to advocacy, always fuel my mission in supporting women in aquaculture value chain. We also streamlined the process of value addition and processing. We add value to fish, like we have various products, like we have sun-dried fish, we have smoked fish, we have fish sausages, and they are there in the market. We also invest in cold storage infrastructures, like we have deep freezers, we have transporting infrastructures from the processing plant or production to the market. Then we also have various distribution channels in various parts of the county and also in the country. So our solution is to stabilize market by making sure that we have enough fish in the market, and also to invest in cold storage facilities to promote the quality of fish, and also to win back the consumer confidence or restore the trust of the consumers, because most of the people fear fish because it's spoiled very fast. So we are in the industry, we want to restore the consumers' trust by supplying high quality food. We also improve the efficiency by using the IoT in the industry. Like in fish cage farmers, we have a real-time system for collecting data in the water, and this is all about the data management. And also we want to connect our farmers, like producers, consumers, and also suppliers in the market. And in terms of social impact, currently we are working with 600 women in cage farming and also youths by supporting them in aquaculture value chain. And we promote food security and nutrition, because you all understand that fish is very nutritious and rich in omega-3 fatty acids. We also provide employment for the youths in value chain, right from production, processing, and marketing. We also support research and innovations in the industry as we balance the ecosystem to avoid things to do with pollution in the industry, and currently we are partnering with Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. This is the summary of the social impact, whereby we support women to have adequate supply of fish. We also boost their income. We aggregate fish to support fish nutrition, and also increase the income per farmer by the fact that we are working with the women in the industry. In terms of environmental impact, our partnership with a research institution, we conserve the environment and also create climate change resilience through research. We also reduce carbon footprint emission through observing the feed conversion ratio when it comes to feeding fish, because when you feed fish, they consume 30% of the fish, the rest will go to the water. So we reduce the carbon footprint by ensuring that we have low FCR value, and also we promote clean energy from fish waste. Out of the processing, we generate a lot of waste, like fish ovals, and when you just dump in the environment, you pollute the environment. So what we do currently at Rio Fish, we produce biogas from fish waste, and this is a pilot trial in collaboration with KEPSA and SMEP, and we are hoping for the best. And these are our value chain partners. We have funding partners, we have regulatory agencies, and we have counties for expansion. And allow me to acknowledge all the organizers of this workshop, and I welcome you all in board as we support fish value chain towards having a sustainable future for all. Thank you very much.
You must be wondering why I'm posing for the agripreneurs. Is that all we can do? No. I think let's do it in a much better way. Okay? The mathematicians, they call it, yeah? What do we call it in mathematics? Yeah. It's factorial. Okay? So we start with 3, we go 2, and then 1. I think the agripreneurs have already shown us the way in terms of what we should be looking at. So let's start. Did you get it right? Okay, fine, we'll try another time. So thank you very much for those actually very, very stimulating remarks from the agripreneurs. Notice agripreneurs. I've changed the language now. Yeah. Agripreneurs, right? Susan and Mercy, thank you very much for those remarks, and I hope that these issues have been picked up. Cold storage issue, quality of inputs as well, fingerlings and so on, and we'll get into that. Okay? So this is setting the pace for us in terms of what we are doing. So for the next presenters who have been researching, you already have your benchmark. We will not ask you, but please gauge yourself with what has already been said. So we want to get into the findings, the researches that have been done, so that we can see if those findings are actually addressing some of the issues that have already been indicated. For that particular purpose, I want to abdicate the seat for a few minutes and hand over this session to Dr. Karugia, Joseph Karugia, to chair this particular session. And as you come, please, you can have your mic, you can sit over here and run the next session. So I'm giving you the responsibility for now so that we can move on to the next session. So please, let's, yeah. Okay, after this session is when we'll go for break. So let's have this particular session and then we'll break at this point in time. Okay, welcome, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and let me acknowledge Tegemeo and the Sarah Care project partners for inviting me to be part of this exciting conference. My name is Joseph Karugia. I'm with the International Livestock Research Institute here in Nairobi and also the CGIR. So this will be our first technical session, if I can call it that, right? And the topic of our discussion or presentation is trends and drivers of agricultural growth in the country. And I think it's appropriately placed to set the tone and also the context of the topics that will be presented later today. To get us going, we have Speaker Timothy Njagi, who is with the African Network of Agricultural Policy Research Institutes. We will have 20 minutes, and then we'll have some 10 minutes of discussion. And hopefully during this discussion, we'll address some of the questions raised by the agripreneurs and also the Deputy Vice Chancellor regarding land subdivision. Tim, the floor is yours. You have 18 minutes, because I've taken 2.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stand here and present some work that we've done with colleagues at Tegemeo and also at IFPRI. So we did a study which was more of a reflection. And I think for us, we hope that, as Joseph has said, it will help us address some of the questions that have been posed by the speakers before. So the government has set some quite targets in terms of agricultural transformation, but we need to look at where we are coming from, because basically that provides a foundation of where we are building from. Just next, please. Okay, sorry, so I went so fast. Okay, so this is a famous, I think most of you have seen this graph. It's quite common, where we've been just showing the importance of agriculture in the Kenyan economy. But the key thing to note here is that when you look at the past decade, and the past decade literally we are looking at the period between 2010 and 2020, the first thing you notice is that the core movements are no longer as, they are not as consistent as they were before. So the core movement, initially you can see in the past, every time agriculture would fall, overall GDP would follow. But when you look at towards the end of 2020 and the current period, the core movements are no longer as prominent. Partly this is because the economy has become diversified. We have more sectors contributing more to the economy. As we know, as of the last rebasing, which was done just before COVID, agriculture now moved from accounting from 34% to around now 22%. But the key thing is, you notice this volatility. It's highly volatile. Mainly is because our sector is we are not proofed from the weather shocks. So every time we have a weather shock, and a weather shock can be either rain or in some cases pest and disease outbreaks, we always get to see this kind of shock. So like even the period, you can always tell where you have this peak, what was happening. In 2011, if you recall, we had a major drought at the beginning of this decade that we are looking at. If you recall, around 2013, 2014, we had major pest outbreaks. That was the first time we had the interaction with the fall armyworm, and we also had the maize lethal necrotic diseases. We also had, for horticulture, we had an outbreak of tuta absoluta. So you can always check and go back and see where these shocks were, what was explaining this shock. The last recent drought, if you recall it, was between 2016 and 2017. And then you also see, although we are not paying more attention to this last 2 years, between 2021 and 2022, again, we had a major drought. So the key thing here is that although the sector remains important, we are very vulnerable to weather shocks. The sector, in terms of structure, it's still heavy on crops. And I'm happy that Chekrui actually made a presentation before me, because you can actually see that crops dominates mainly because of the cash crops. And when you look at value added, that comes from the cash crops, tea, coffee, cut flowers is quite significant. But livestock and fisheries have a huge potential. However, unlike crops, we cannot continue to rely on primary production. And I like the map, especially for fisheries, as Chikuri showed, because for fisheries and livestock, we have a huge potential, but it's not on production. It's actually on value addition and agro-processing. That's where the opportunity lies. But consistently, we have remained dominated by crops, and we need to start thinking of, as we're thinking about the transformation, what can we do to unlock the potential, especially in the livestock and fisheries subsectors. Then, in terms of the growth within the subsectors, again, we see huge vulnerabilities, but this is not just weather, it has also been because of policy. And I think one of the reasons we're here, especially to discuss how policy affects our subsectors, we can actually try and learn what has been happening here. So I've already explained the shocks, especially for the crop subsector, and I want to pay more attention to the one that was happening on fisheries. And you'll notice that apart from, if you look at the fisheries, we had two major shocks in the last decade and a half. The first one was during the post-election violence that led to the introduction of the stimulus program. But the second one was mainly as a result of devolution. Not that devolution was a bad thing, but because when we devolved, we had a lot of confusion, and it took a bit of a while. It took almost the entire first term before counties could take up the functions on devolution. And that you can actually see, it led to a minus 15 growth at the peak for fisheries. For livestock, which is this orange one, kind of flatlines during the period, but again, you can actually see, like when we had the drought in 2021-22, again, kind of nosedives. So this kind of confirms what you already know, that our production especially is primary driven, so we are most driven on primary production, and we're extremely vulnerable to shocks. What did we prioritize, and what are our building blocks, especially when we think of where we're coming from? When you look across this period, we had 3 sector strategies, which is not necessarily ideal. We had 3 medium-term plans. So the sector strategies, I've not highlighted them there, but I can just mention them. You remember, we started with, during this period, we started with a strategy for revitalization of agriculture, which was running from 2008 to 2014. And then we had devolution in 2010. When we passed the constitution in 2010, we realized that we were going to devolve it. So we immediately switched to the agriculture sector development strategy, which was 2010 to 2020. And then as we started implementing devolution, we realized that it was inconsistent with the devolved functions. And then we went and developed the agriculture sector transformation and growth strategy. But what was consistent, if we follow this, was the medium-term plans for the Vision 2030. We had the first medium-term plan 1, which focused on extension services. I think both the 2 ladies who are here have talked about the issue about access to improved inputs, both seed and breeds. There was, in the first MTP, there was a lot of focus on low-cost irrigation. This is a small-scale irrigation. And I want you to pay attention to some of these things because you can see how the policy focus changed. We also had started talking about reforming the institutions within the sector, especially the consolidation of the regulatory institutions. We launched the subsidy following the 2008 world oil shock. We had also talked about developing an agriculture land use master plan. And I think this clearly answers the question that the VC had raised about whether we need to think about some of these land policies. And we're also talking about promotion of cooperatives and development. When we came to the MTP2, now we had the functions devolved. The key departure was, for example, when we think about irrigation, it moved now from small scale to large scale. All of a sudden now we thought, okay, these small guys will not help us. We need these mega projects, and we need to think about large-scale irrigation and large-scale farming. And I think that's the first time we started interacting with this discussion where we were advocating for leasing government land, especially for large-scale irrigation. We still had the inputs subsidy programs, and mainly we had, the main one of course was the fertilizer subsidy program. Because of devolution at the national level, the focus shifted from provision of extension services to more of market access and value addition. And in this period, I think everything was more of, I'd say, we're learning by doing, because we had counties in place. Counties were doing the first CIDP, but they were not necessarily aligned to what we had planned in the national level. Then in the third, the other medium-term plan, which was commonly known as the Big Four agenda, or if you ask guys in Treasury, they'll still, some of you still refer to it as the MTP3, but I think everybody knows it as the Big Four agenda. It had some innovations that were quite useful. First, I think they acknowledged that the subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, was not working, and they the plan was to provide more incentives to private sector to do fertilizer blending. In the first two MTPs, we had talked about, as we are talking about quality of seeds and breeds, in the second MTP, we paid more attention to drought tolerance and early maturity varieties. But in the Big Four agenda now, we now had the terminology of climate smart agriculture and resilience building, and that was incorporated in the plan documents. We still struggled with the regulations and the consolidation of the regulatory and research institutions. I think that is still an issue to date. And another unique thing that we saw in the Big Four agenda was the prioritization of value chains. Unlike before, where we went gung-ho, in the Big Four, they said we will focus on 4 crops. I think we had maize, coffee, rice, and cotton. And the idea was that for that period, we focus on these crops, and we think that these crops are the ones that are going to give us a push that we need to boost the economy. And then, as we are not necessarily leaving the other ones behind, but we'll pick them, I mean, there is more focus on these 4 crops that had been prioritized. And then, of course, we had this whole evolution on the blue economy and aquaculture, and trying to set aside the blue economy as a sector on its own. So what we learned during that period, and especially looking at how this contrasts with the earlier periods, is that, one, our output within the last decade contracted. Agricultural output compared to the previous decade went down. However, what was explaining this is that between 2001 and 2010, that is the previous decade, the key driver was total factor productivity. You can actually see here that it's this blue bar, which is a bit positive. In the last decade, between 2011 and 2020, total factor productivity was actually negative. And we grew our output just by doing area expansion and doing inputs intensification. So area expansion means that we are trying to increase the area that we are cultivating. We are trying to use more intensification, using more seed, fertilizer, and other inputs. But as I think from the introduction, we all know the issues that we have, the issues with soil. And we know that this is no longer, it's not a viable strategy. One, we know that land, I think as the VC mentioned, is no longer available. We have increase in population, so we have less land. We have land that is being converted into other uses, non-agricultural land. And when you talk about, even if you increase fertilizer use, we still are constrained by the soil health and weather shocks. So we can use a lot of fertilizer, but if it doesn't rain, we know that we are not going to get the harvest that we are looking for. The other key things that we can highlight quickly in terms of the drivers, so we know that the inputs intensification mainly was because of the government programs. I think we spent in that between 2008 to 2018, we spent about $300 million US on fertilizer subsidy. We had promoted, at the beginning of that decade, we had promoted growth in smallholder irrigation, but we shifted focus to large-scale irrigation. And then, unfortunately, by around 2020, because of the scandals that were following the big infrastructure projects, again, the focus now has moved back to small-scale irrigation. We've seen an increase in supply of seed and germplasm, and mainly this is combined from the work that is being done by research institutions, including CGIAR. We've also seen CJR through ILRI are doing a lot of breed improvement and development together with the State Department of Livestock. We have CAGRIC that has, and now county governments have picked in. And again, there's a lot of subsidy programs around, improved genes and providing these to farmers. We've seen a lot of growth in peri-urban agriculture, and this is more of an induced growth. It's not a planned growth because of the shrinkage in land sizes and because the farmers near the big cities, including Nairobi, like in this area now we're talking about Kiambu and Kajiado, have realized the opportunity. So we've seen a lot of growth in peri-urban agriculture, mainly on horticultural crops, and just making sure that they're supplying the urban consumers. We've seen growth in value addition, especially dairy, although we are still way below what the government targets. But over the last decade, we've seen quite an improvement through the work that KBB has been doing. And the development of transport infrastructure has really helped in terms of enhancing market access. However, we are still constrained by weather shocks, conflicts, especially if you think about livestock. We have already started seeing tensions within the pastoralist areas because right now we know that the rains are failing, and the fight over pasture and water is creating a lot of conflicts. And some of the times this conflict spill over even to crop areas, like we've seen now in the case of Tana River. And then, of course, the big shock during the last decade was the COVID pandemic. So for what did government contribute to these growth drivers? I think I've mentioned one with the mega projects. We did have some successful programs, like the cotton program led to the introduction of the BT cotton, although now that the adoption of that seems to have flatlined, and we are not seeing growth in terms of area under cotton. We had the climate smart projects such as KSAP, NARIG. We had the cereal enhancement programs that led to improved access to technologies, and also was a pathway in which farmers got to learn. Subsidies, we've had a lot of subsidies now, both at national and county level, the main one being on fertilizer. But we've seen, I think, many counties offering like free services on mechanized inputs. However, we've also seen government subsidizing, especially in the years where we have huge shocks, like in 2017, where we've even had to subsidize food imports. When we think of this is not just for the foods that we consume directly. Right now, we're also trying to help livestock farmers access cheaper feed by subsidizing the raw materials for animal feed. The key constraint has been that public sector funding to the sector remains low. On average, during the last decade, it was at 2% of the total budget. And when you consider part of that, what goes into research and development, that is still very, very low. Although we have seen an increase in terms of what universities are trying to do through grants, and in some universities we've seen cooperation with TVETs to try and improve training. We are still falling short in terms of getting this push, especially from the public sector side. And also, we've had the CGIAR development partners like USAID increasing their investments, and this has been critical, especially in filling the gaps, funding gaps from the public sector side. In terms of constraints, so agriculture productivity continues to be a major constraint, and this affects the bottom line for farmers. I think Mwihaki mentioned that she doesn't want to be referred to as a farmer because it has a connotation of, you almost need welfare assistance. So you're not seen as a person who can produce and make money. Part of this, again, has been the structural changes. I think the VC mentioned the issue about land fragmentation. So we have allowed land to be subdivided into very small portions that are not economically viable. Some of the portions, even though we are saying that we have now registered some of these people as farmers, it would not matter how much fertilizer subsidy would give them, even if we gave them at zero cost. because the land sizes are just too small, and especially if they continue engaging or participating in some of the staple commodities. Why? Because most of the staple commodities like maize is a low value crop. So it cannot be, for you to be able to make money on that, you need some sufficient scale. I think she has also mentioned the high cost of doing business. Fertilizer prices are high, seed prices are high, transportation is high, and you can actually see the high cost. It does not just affect production, but it also affects trading and distribution. So how do you get food to the farmers? So I've talked a lot about climate shocks and over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture. I've also mentioned the issue about the low investments. And here I just want to emphasize that ideally, it would not be a big problem per se, even if we had low investments from the public side. However, how we are using those investments is not to crowd in private sector investments. We are actually competing with the private sector investments that are in agriculture. So we end up pushing them out. So we need to think of how we use the limited resources that we have. So we've talked, then we also have market shocks. And some of these go beyond our control within the sector. And the one I want to quickly highlight is at the beginning of, from last year and early this year, we had a microeconomic shock where our exchange rate really spiked. And that really affected the price of inputs, because with the dollar rate at that, when it went to about 160 and you're importing fertilizer, then that means that fertilizer prices will be high. The same for animal feeds. And then we've also had a challenge with incoherent policy. And this is where you see the policy objective and what is being done are at cross purpose. We are doing something opposite from what we intend to do. So lastly, I want to end this is that we do see a lot of opportunities, especially as we think of how we want to transform the sector. I think the first key driver is to recognize the potential of the private sector. And the private sector has, if we can unlock private sector investments in agriculture, we will not be complaining about public investments being low, because we'll be able to fill in the gap with that. And for us to do that, we need to think of how we can enhance productivity. We need to think of how we can enhance competitiveness, because as we enhance productivity, we have to think of the market. Where are we going to sell, especially if we are not able to absorb everything that we are producing. We can do that by enhancing irrigation, mechanization programs, and I think we'll have a session where we talk a bit on soil health. There's need to leverage digital technologies and innovations, and I think there's a lot of drive, including programs by the government, towards this. We need to leverage the trade opportunities and take advantage of these treaties, such as the Africa Free Continental Trade Area and the bilateral agreements that we have within the sector. We need to do this in an inclusive way, so we make sure that we carry the youth, women and other marginalized communities, and most importantly, because, and we want to emphasize this, agriculture is devolved. We must make counties work. We must ensure that the counties are efficient in their discharge of functions, and we need to do this by budget implementation support and policy and institution reforms that allow counties to deliver on the mandate that is provided for them in the Schedule 4 of the Constitution. Lastly, we need to learn from our neighbors. We cannot grow agriculture by relying on resource-led growth. Our neighbors, not very far, Ethiopia, has been able to do this very well with productivity growth. So we need to think of how do we move our agriculture from relying on increase in land expansion or increase in inputs use, to think of how do we grow agriculture by ensuring that we are harvesting more from the small pieces of land that we are tilling. So I think I'd want to stop there and just acknowledge the support from IFPRI and Tegemeo in this work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, team. I think we are within the time allocated for this. I will not attempt to summarize what the team has presented, but I think I liked the point that the partnership between the public sector and private sector is absolutely key to driving agricultural growth in the country. And it's not just the amount of money that the public sector puts in the sector, it's also for what purposes, focusing on helping the private sector to do business that they are good at. So we have a couple of minutes to get comments or questions. Please keep them short, precise, so that we can harvest as many as we can. So there will be a microphone going on. Can we see hands up? It must have been an excellent presentation. No comments. Is there any hand up that I can't see? No, there is one over here. Okay.
My name is Joshua Takema from Kenya Association of Manufacturers. The presentation was very good, and where we come from, of course, we understand that agriculture is key as a raw materials on our industries. So my question is, over the past decade, you presented different priorities under different MTP1, MTP2, but I did not see under the better. That is a bottom economic transformation agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have another one here.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. My name is Patrick Tiam from Calro. I want to ask for more clarification. I looked at the trend analysis, and you showed that in the last, I think this year, 2022, there have been serious contributions of GDP beside agriculture. This is a bit contradictory because government and the better economy are relying on agriculture. So possibly you need to explain so that we can be able to understand what are the other contributions that is really building the GDP beside agriculture, so that we may, going forward, possibly that can be an area of strengthening. Because we always say agriculture is the backbone of our GDP, but the data is showing differently. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we have one over there.
Thank you very much. I know we have, the government has tried to sort the issues of high fertilizer prices through subsidy, but of course fertilizer is not the only input, there are many inputs. But the story of high cost of production continues. Perhaps it's the time we understood that cost is high compared to what? What is the benchmark on cost of production?
Thank you. Okay, if no more questions, comments, we can ask Tim to respond. Tim?
Thank you very much for the questions. I think let me start with the last one. So if you think of a smallholder farmers, and let me use the common one, a maize farmer. So if you're a maize farmer, and let's give you 2 acres of land, and let's say this year has been kind compared to last year. Compared to last year, this year is much kinder. So assuming you even got government fertilizer subsidy, so that instead of buying at around 5,500, you got it at 2,500. It will take you, on average, you will spend close to about 40 to 50,000 acres to produce for that 1 acre of maize. And last year, because we had good rains, assuming that we got good rains and you got 20 bags, and we know most farmers don't even get to that level. I think my friend Anthony will confirm that. Most of the smallholders will be talking about 12, 10 to 12 bags. So that brings your cost to almost 4,000. If you got 10 bags and you're doing at 40,000, then you're producing 1 bag at around 4,000. right? So right now, what is the market offering? The market is offering what, 20, 25? So that is the context of the high cost of production, that you are producing at 3,000, 3,500, the market is giving you 2,500, and remember you had 2 acres. So if you multiply that by 2, you can see the loss that you're making. If you are a bigger farmer, probably bigger farmers will be doing around 18 to 20 bags. So that can bring your cost of production to, if you're spending, because then your input cost will be lower because you're doing, you get to benefit from some scale. So even if you do at 2,600, 2,700, at least you can now, the market doesn't completely disadvantage you because you can do some arbitrage that allows you to break even. That means that whatever investments you put in your land, you're able to recover them and continue plowing, continue farming in the subsequent seasons. But our case, and this is why the land size matters. If you are going to be, if you have half an acre of land, you should not grow maize. We should think of what commodity should you grow. Because remember, unless this guy is a teacher or has some other incomes, he has children to feed. He has medical bills to pay. So that enterprise cannot sustain his livelihood. And I think that is where we should be approaching the issue about the cost of production. That are you able to be competitive without necessarily saying that we need now government to come and buy our maize at 4,000. Because the moment government does that, then what happens to the consumers? Because consumers will still be demanding unga at 100 shillings. So we need to look at it from that perspective. I think to the question that was raised by Patrick, I think if you look at this year's economic survey, you realize that the way KNBS does the national accounts, we have other sectors that are coming up. So we have revised how we are quantifying the value added from agriculture. So what you mentioned, that agriculture is the backbone of the economy, that has not changed. But what you are saying is that we have other sectors that can build more. And for example, if we do more agro-processing and value addition, most of that will be captured under manufacturing. It is not captured under agriculture. But then it creates a big multiplier effect on other sectors, including hospitality. When we are here today, we'll eat. All that is coming from agriculture, but it is captured under services. So we have other sectors that are now contributing more. So the share of agriculture goes down. I think to the last question that was posed by Josephat, so this study, we were mainly looking at the past decade. So we haven't analyzed what is happening currently. We wanted to learn from where we are coming from so that we can see how it informs where we are going. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I think let me take advantage of my being the chair to pose a question. You did talk about incoherent policy landscape. And the team, the people that are here, certainly are big stakeholders in that arena. But also they can do something about it. I guess the question is, we are aware about different coordination mechanisms, just Intergovernmental Relations Committee and so on and so forth. But still we have, and every time we look at this issue, policies are incoherent. And of course, the sector of agriculture spans several ministries, from counties to national level and so on. What do we do to get coherence? Because if trade, if environment, if agriculture, crops, livestock, and others don't work together to really develop these policies, it's going to persist and hurt the sector. Quick comment on that, but also, I think, food for thought for the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for that. And I think the 2 days here, we will be trying to answer the question that Joseph has raised. So I'll just make some quick comments. I think first is to agree with what Joseph has said, that we need to bring all stakeholders to the table. So if today we are talking about agricultural production, we need to have people in trade at the point in which you're talking about production. Most of the time it happens that we produce first, then we look for where the trade people to think of now how do we start making. And I can give an example of there's some work we did that was supported by USAID that was looking at how county government are structured and how they are organized. And we found that, I will not mention the county, but the county did some good work under one of these government big, I think it was NARIG, and they helped farmers. They gave farmers, they were giving farmers dairy animals. They were supporting them with AI, and they even got them a milk cooler. And farmers were motivated, and production increased. The problem is they never talked to the roads people. So when now farmers had a lot of milk, you can imagine when the first time the Brookside truck came in, it realized that it couldn't get there. So it told farmers, the only way we can help you is that you have to come to the nearest market. And for you to do that, you have to put your milk on a boda. Remember, if the truck is able to get where the farmer is, the farmer incurs not cost in transportation. But now, because you have to put your milk on a boda, you have to pay an additional 200 shillings so that you can get your milk to where Brookside have said that we'll only go up to this place. And as you can imagine, what happened next? Farmers started selling the animals they were given because they were not seeing the money that they were making. Why? Because there was no road, right? When we went to talk to those farmers, the first thing they tell you is that Brookside is a cartel, right? You can always see how it happens because they refuse to come and buy our milk. But and that's the issue about the coordination. So how do we make sure that as we are growing production, we're also thinking of how will these things land in the market? What do we have a market structure? Do we need storage? Who will facilitate? Where we need private sector to come and make investments, are we working with them on to make sure that if today we are providing seeds, right, and we have asked a government institution like NCPB to distribute seed or reverse CALRO. NCPB will not do this tomorrow. So tomorrow the farmers will go to an agro dealer. Does this agro dealer have information on the seed varieties that are being promoted so that he can start thinking about his effective demand and start stocking so that next season when a farmer wants seed, he knows where to come. So we need to make sure that we bring all stakeholders on board and we have better planning to make sure that we are able to work together.
Thank you, team. Thanks, everybody. I think that was a good pace setter for the conference. Please join me in thanking our presenter and all of us for being active participants. Thank you very much. Over to our facilitator.
Thank you, Joseph, for steering that session. We now want to break. We want to go for tea. But before we take the tea, there's a caveat. If you're not in the group photo, you do not take tea. So in other words, let's go for the group photo first, then we can come back for the tea. You will exercise a little bit because the group photo is, oh no, there are lifts now. But you can also go down the stairways. So we go take the photograph just at the entrance of the hotel, okay? Yeah? So the way you came in, down there, we take the photo, and after the photo, you're good for the tea. We will resume at 11. So between now and 11, we take the photo plus the tea.